What's a sound you heard when you were young that you no longer hear? The white noise sound of the TV when a channel had no reception. William Gibson's iconic cyberpunk novel, Neuromancer, opens on a description of the sky as being the color of a TV that's not tuned to a channel. A comment that stuck with me is how the tone of that scene changes, whether you're picturing a staticky grey court screen or the Hey TVs that replaced them, most of which represented a no-signal screen with bright blue. The absolute obliteration coming from Thick's intro. The audience is now deaf. Played a DVD yesterday for my kids cause my parents' internet sucks. But of course my dad has the Cadillac of surround systems with a huge subwoofer behind the couch. Thex came up on the screen and I was convinced it was another earthquake for a second. Camera flash charging sound. Amazing how you can instantly hear a sound you've not even thought about for years just by someone saying it. And who would have thought these sounds would be nostalgic one day? When I hear this, I immediately think of Splinter Cell, or just the sound of winding film at all. Weird waterbed sounds. I completely forgot those existed. I remember wanting one thought. We had a waterbed growing up, and I remember those weird whooshing sounds until the bed popped. Then I remember the squishy sound that carpet made for a long time after. The high-pitched whine of a cord television monitor, waving your hand over a dusty TV screen and hearing the static pops while little electricity craters appear in the dust. The Degas button on a big court monitor. Bow! I still do. It's just my tinnitus, though. The telephone ringing with an actual metal bell, not a recorded sound played through a speaker. Or the sound of a rotary dial. For that matter, a dial tone. Haven't heard one of those in years. The ka-chunk of credit card imprint machines. A few years back, I was working at a gas station, and some crazy sunspot interference, to quote my boss, knocked out all our electronics. We had to bring out the manual credit card imprinter, and it was such an eargasm moment. In elementary school, we'd watch movies on projectors with film reels. So, the sounds of a film projector and also the white screens they'd pull down. The slap, slap, slap of the loose film end when it was done rewinding. I also loved the click of slides when we would watch them. I can almost hear the giggles we'd let out when slides were upside down or the carriage would get stuck. Dot matrix printer printing. Other things I miss about dot matrix printing. The ribbon ink costing nothing. The printer fucking working. They had these at my local library when I was a kid. It was a strangely comforting sound. They don't have them anymore, of course, and I miss it. That and the K-chunk of those big mechanical stampers they used to date the sheet on the books when you checked them out. Those are gone now too, all computerized. The daily arrival and departure of a steam locomotive. Yes, I'm that old, but it was the most satisfying, powerful, unforgettable sound for a little kid. They were like huge living beasts. Steam engines have always been this magical, mythical thing for me. They were phased out long before I was born and were consigned to museums even when I was a child, so seeing one in action is always amazing to me and hasn't lost any value. As a kid of the 80s, I grew up in peak Thomas the Tank Engine times and was obsessed with trains. Going to places like Crewe when they did their Thomas exhibition with all the exact train models from the show as a 5-year-old, that was like going to Disney World. You're right, they're like big mechanical creatures. They were amazing as a kid, but as an adult I find them even more impressive feats of engineering. The UK has some amazingly well-preserved old-school train lines and steam engine. Can totally see what you mean. When I saw my first one in these more modern times, I was just overwhelmed with how mighty and powerful these huge behemoths actually are. I know we've made some tremendous progress, but has to be said the mighty steam train was a true testament of engineering. Dial-up connection. B-E-U-B-R-D-U-R, ding, ding, ding. That is why I always snuck on the internet at night. No one calls. Leo. Literally, the first thing that popped up in my head when I saw the headline. It was such an essential part of a certain period in my life. Other things from that same time period too, like the default sound effects in Windows 3.1, or that sound a 3.5-inch floppy drive made when you started with a boot disk. Call me now for your free reading, Miss Cleo. There is a documentary on Apumax about all of that. Edit. The documentary is called Call Me Miss Cleo. Remember falling asleep with the TV on and waking up to that weird colored picture with a B-E-E? Old cot TVs used to have that flyback 15 says mosquito sound. I wonder if I could still detect a switched on TV or computer monitor, or if I've lost that hearing rain. Fun facts from a former TV master control operator about Septicolor bars. They can be used to set up a monitor. At the bottom are 3 little black, dark, grey pludge bars. Set your brightness, contrast so you can see the difference between 2 of them, but not the third. If you put blue film over the monitor, you can tweak its hue so the bars alternate in equal intensity. They're used to match sources at your local TV affiliate between satellite and microwave signals and tapes from advertisers and distributors all over. The colors go in boxes in a vector scope, while the brightness here is set on another scope. It would be jarring to the viewer if someone didn't take care of this before switching sources. A thin sliver of them are included in the vertical blanking interval and have been since 1979. You can see them if the vertical hold is screwy on a card set. Parker pioneered this with their color chart TVs, so the TV itself can set itself for best performance as you change from channel to channel. These are referred to as VITs, or vertical interval test signal. The tone is a 1000 tone meant for setting recording levels on VITs and whatnot. That same channel at 6M, this is Q, broadcasting out of Chicago at a frequency of 15Z. We lived right next to a huge field and across the road from Lake Michigan. So on a summer night, there would be a million crickets singing, and I could smell the lake through the open window right by my bed. Such a peaceful place, just thinking about it gives me the feels. The court warming up when you turn the TV on and the speakers popping along. Miss that epoxy duster vacuum tube Bakelite smell too. This tapes rewinding, CDs skipping. I always expect Pretty Fly for a White Guy by The Offspring to skip at the end because that was my favorite song I listened to on my yellow Walkman. At the tone, the time will be 6, 15 and 20 seconds beep. My mom calling me to come in the house for dinner. The whir, click, of a cassette player as you rewind, play, play, trying to find the song you want. I remember thinking I was living in the future the first time I had a cassette player that could fast forward to the next song and automatically start playing. I'm old. My mom telling me to wake up and get ready for school. My mom sending the shades up and saying, rise and shine and up and at 'em, accompanied by a blinding light. Nighttime was time to hit the hay and give a kiss. That was long ago and gone forever. My mom telling me she loves me. The invalid phone number tone. We're sorry, your call cannot be completed as dialed. Also the sound the phone made when you left it off the hook too long. You've got mail. Still there if you use AOL on a browser, like my wife. The sound of a packed arcade, and in particular pinball machines. Now I'm middle-aged, I'm seriously eyeing a used pinball machine for my office. Rotary phone pulses. A manual typewriter being typed on. We still use one for labels at my office, and when I have a hangover, it sounds like machine gun fire. Silence. Tinnitus sucks. The Game Boy sound. The squeak of bats. I can't hear that pitch so well anymore, and there are fewer bats flying around these days anyway. Not sure, I can't hear it. But this isn't marked, so I do have a story. One time in middle school we had a sub for science class. He was well over the age of 70. For some reason, there was this weird, high-pitched noise during the independent work time. I think it may have been one of the LED light bulbs. Anyways, one of the kids complained about it, and we all agreed it was annoying. The sub thought this was odd. He couldn't hear it. A few minutes later, it's still going and a different kid complains. Why won't it stop? The sub gets mad at us, complains about us colluding to mess with him, promising us he'd tell our teacher that we made up a sound that didn't exist. The kids were confused why he couldn't hear it. I, as polite as I could, tell him we're all 13 or 14. Maybe he just can't hear it because he's older than us. Now he's livid. As he's yelling at us for making up a noise that didn't exist and calling him old, a 25 or so year old person who worked in the office walks into the room and immediately looks confused. What's that noise? The sub muttered an apology under his breath. That super loud quiet at 2 a.m. when you're half asleep in the middle row of the van and Dad stopped for gas somewhere in Pennsylvania. Sister and brother are asleep in the back. Mom's got her head tilted back, but you know she's awake. The dinging of the door opening with the keys still in wakes everyone halfway. Mom asks quietly if anyone needs to use the bathroom. Nobody answers. Now if I stop for gas on the thruway at 2 a.m., I'm the one driving. That loud quiet is definitely gone. This one struck a good chord with me. I had similar experience. I also remember kind of vaguely watching my mom turning to look at us and whisper quietly to my dad, "Damn, you unlocked a lost memory." I remember getting so excited about trips, 'cause I'd get to listen to music or read for 8 hours. You forgot the exasperated sigh from Dad as he clicks on the turn signal to stop at another exit when someone quietly admits that they have to pee 30 minutes after leaving the gas station. The original emergency broadcast system message and sound. Also, my hometown used to have a fire horn signal system. When there was a fire call, the horn sounded, then a pattern of short and long gave a number that corresponded to the location of the fire. Then the short burst following the number called for the number of trucks to respond. Any time you heard more than 5 bursts, the family would pile into the car to go watch the fire burn because it was guaranteed to be spectacular. Any time there were more than 8 bursts, you could watch the fire from where you were standing. The one time there was more than 10 bursts, everyone took shelter in the basement, shopping mall arcades. Wizard needs food badly. The creaky spring in pogo sticks. Kids playing in the street in the city, and one of them yelling "Kaya" when a car is approaching. I'm sure this still happens somewhere, but I don't see any kids playing in the street anymore. The instant message sound on AIM. Or the doctor opening sound when someone got online. Man, I'd get butterflies hoping it was my crush. Then you'd hear that door slam low.